novelty by a precocious child woman, however, but a mature achievement. One cannot help remarking, said Ray Redman in the Saturday Review of Literature, that this is an extraordinary novel to have been written by a young woman of 22. But the more important fact is that it is an extraordinary novel in its own right. Some readers fretted. The New York Times reviewer said she dreaded McCullers' second novel. So high is the standard she has set, it doesn't seem possible that she can reach it again. The poet May Sarton lamented that it would be another year or two before there would be another book by this extraordinary young woman. But Fadiman said he'd place a small bet on her future. She looked like a teenage boy. Tall and gangly, with what Ray Bradbury called ploppy ways, she cut an unconventional figure in fashion-conscious literary Manhattan. All coltish legs, she sometimes wore abbreviated tennis shorts and sweatshirts, heedless of city customs. Her husband used to tell her she could be a champion sprinter. Otherwise, once she could afford them, she favored crisp white men's dress shirts with trousers or a suit, and she almost always wore Oxfords, sometimes men's brogans, and favored knee socks, often white. Her brown hair hung straight to her shoulders, cut in short bangs across her forehead, strictly wash and wear. Her cropped hair and childish pout, when she wasn't convulsed with laughter, gave her the look of a child swimming in adult clothes. But the clothes themselves were carefully chosen and expensive. She loved fashion and never overlooked anyone's clothing. She did like to add a personal touch. Sometimes, unfortunately, the white knee socks were but one example. But as soon as she arrived in New York, she sought out distinctive, stylish clothes. The first time Truman Capote met Carson, he noted that she was a tall, slender wand of a girl, slightly stooped, and with a fascinating face that was simultaneously merry and melancholy. She had large, liquid, deep brown eyes, and spoke in the accents of the Deep South. Capote noted that her eyes glowed warmly, and that her voice had the same quality, the same gentle heat, like a blissful summer afternoon that is slow but not sleepy. Yet it was wise to listen closely, for she had a lively, mordant wit and spared no one. Some years later, she looked back, "I became an established literary figure overnight, and I was much too young to understand what happened to me or the responsibility it entailed. I was a bit of a holy terror." Carson's early marriage was not in her press packet, so to speak. She had married at 19 to a good-looking, Alabama-born charmer who had most recently been a credit investigator in a string of small southern cities. Like Carson, Reeves McCullers, she vastly preferred his last name to her own family name, Smith, was determined to get out of the South, for he was also smart and ambitious. Both seemed to know that New York was a good place for anyone who was in some way different, who did not quite fit in, that there they could find, if not a home, then similarly inclined souls with whom they might feel less alone. But their marriage was strained by the time The Heart is a Lonely Hunter made its dramatic appearance. The reasons reached beyond Carson's imminent success. Within a month of her arrival, she fell madly in love with a beautiful and talented Swiss writer who was visiting friends in New York. "She had a face," Carson said, "that I knew would haunt me to the end of my life." Annemarie Schwarzenbach soon returned to her travels, dying tragically 2 years later after a bicycle accident in the Alps. She reciprocated Carson's passion only briefly. But Carson's love for Annemarie established a pattern that would continue almost to the end of her life, falling in love with older, more worldly women who sometimes returned her affection, but who, despite her feverish pursuit, seldom wanted the passionate physical relationship she sought. Reeves, within a year, began an affair with another man, a composer who had initially fallen in love with both him and Carson. The resulting triangle brought pain to all three. Reeves's love for Carson was never in question. It was a central fact of her young life, and for Reeves she was quite literally the reason he was alive. But he came slowly to understand that his love for other men would not go away. It was only one of what he saw as his many problems, which included alcoholism and a desperate search for a vocation. Carson, by contrast, was entirely comfortable.